Cloud9 is a really strong team. I mean, they came in, the first 2 games, wiping out TSM and Dignitas. So they obviously came in really strong. I hope for a good game. Probably the hardest team that we're going to go against.
Welcome back, everyone, to Week 1 of the North American LCS Summer Split. Now, before we get into our last match of the day between Velocity and Cloud9, I'd like to welcome TSM's mid laner, Reginald, to the desk.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Had a really commanding game. Talk to us about just your mindset coming into it.
Yeah, so, I mean, our mindset coming into it was like, oh boy, the game before was so long. Let's make this quick. Let's play right. Let's do everything right, and let's snowball the game into victory. And then we came into it really positive. We thought that we came in the mindset with confidence and that we're going to win. So, or we're going to miss our fight, of course. So we tried not to mess up. We did everything right, and we snowballed the game, so we won.
So I want to ask you about a couple of the specifics in the very, very beginning in Champ Select. Dyrus said in an interview, we kind of went back and said, look, we're going to play TSM champions, not just pick what's sort of OP at the time. And so last time it was like we're going to pick Shen, pick our strategy, go for it there. But this time you did go for the Jace. You did go for a lot of these common champions we're seeing in the LCS.
So in Champ Select, I was quite worried, mainly because they had an AoE comp, right? So if it got to mid-game, then we would have lost. Or not mid-game, late game, we would have straight up lost because their comp is so strong. So the idea is our comp is really strong everywhere, and we need to really snowball the game, like win all of our lanes. Specifically, we have stronger 1v2. We should win all our lanes and snowball the game. And so in Champ Select, Jace was left up, and the idea was, should we pick Jace or should we pick Kennen and go in AoE comp? And Dyrus is a lot more comfortable with Jace, so he picked Jace, and then we formed a comp around Jace and made it work because he just played Jace a lot more than Kennen. So we decided to go with Jace comp, and we went into the game, and we're really positive, and we're just expecting just to win our lanes and just to win the game.
Cool.
And against Curse now, with Edward being added to the lineup, what differences did you notice playing against Curse now with their first week of Edward compared to the Curse of last split?
Honestly, I really don't see a difference. Like, for example, like Edward's a really good player, not gonna lie. He's a much better player than Rux or a much better player than Elements in the support role. And I'm not saying that Elements and Rux are bad. I'm just saying Edward's just really good. That's why he got All-Stars for Europe. And I just think that I honestly think that Curse doesn't have strong solo lanes. Like last season, the reason why Curse did so well at the beginning of the split was because Assassins got really strong. And Voibo was a really good player on Assassins, so he would be able to carry Curse really hard. But once Assassins got nerfed, Voibo wasn't able to adapt to the meta. He couldn't play Assassins, and he isn't able to play range champions well, so Curse isn't doing well. NY Jackie isn't a star player. He's a consistent player. He's always going to go even, and he's just always going to go even. He never ever carries, but he's not going to ever feed. And then Cop is a player like that too. He's not going to ever carry, but he's not going to ever feed, right? Yeah. So there's not many players on that team that can carry, and they're playing carry roles. That's why Curse loses, because now they're playing players that are more experienced that can carry. Because before last season, every single player was just playing this game and going to school and taking it as a hobby, but it's a job now. And every player is really just stepping it up and getting better, and Curse hasn't done that yet.
So I want to ask you then about how you would analyze your own team then in terms of who's the consistent guy, who's the carry guy, because you play dudes like Ryze and Karthus who command games, and then Orianna who are a little bit more supportive in their role. So,
I mean, this is how our team works. Usually I would, or just starting how our team would work is everyone is consistent, and like people don't have to win lanes to win game. Like I try to centralize it around picks to win game, so just say I would want to outpick them to win the game rather than relying on outplaying, because like picks are really like 70 or 80% of the game, right? If you go in the game with already a huge disadvantage, you have to play a lot better to win. So our goal is to really go in the game, obviously win our lanes, but try our best to outpick the other teams. And on our team, I'm more of like the playmaker and the shot caller, but I expect Dyrus and Turtle to go even in the lanes. And usually we would just win if other lanes went even, because I generally try to carry really hard. And then when I feed, I try my best to make good calls and have them carry us back into the game.
Cool. So if picks are being 70 to 80% of the game then, and you don't need to divulge too much, but how much time do you spend going through picks and bans before each matchup, especially in something like a Super Week?
So since last split, I've been really controlling like 80 or 90% of our picks and bans. I literally just like watch a lot of replays by myself on my own time before I like go to sleep, or I would just watch replays all the time. And I'm trying to adapt more of the Korean meta where going for objectives are a lot more important, and going for towers, going for kills, right? Because right now you want to get kills and snowball into towers and dragons. You don't want to just get a kill, go back to base, get a kill, go back to base, because that's how NA has been playing for the last 2 years, and we haven't gotten better. We need to adapt to other scenes, and we need to be able to play well. So that's our goal right now, is to get kills, snowball in towers, snowball in objectives.
So speaking of TSM getting better, then I want to talk about how you guys have progressed through Super Week. You started out strong, had a really rough 2 games in the middle, and then came back looking amazing. What happened to turn you guys back up?
So yesterday was really unfortunate. I mean, we played Dig and we played Cloud9 and we lost, and we played Dig and we lost. And a part of that was a lot of our players were not playing well, and our morale was down from losing to Cloud9. And then a big problem was that people weren't listening to my calls, and that's not only the problem but I think that that's a huge problem in our team, mainly because I'm always the shot caller, and I'm always the leader, right? Where people would listen to my calls, and I'd always expect it. So I kind of go on tilt when people don't listen to my calls, and I'm not able to perform as well. So I think that was a big reason why I was underperforming, and people weren't listening to my calls, and that's what led to us losing.
All right.
So just one last question for you then. You mentioned earlier about trying to adapt to the Korean meta, and this is a kind of off question. Who in NA do you think is the closest to adapting to that Korean meta? Would you agree with the perception that it's Cloud9?
Definitely Cloud9. No doubt about it. I honestly think that once the season pans out, Cloud9 and TSM are probably going to be the top 2 teams.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah. So great learning experience, of course, from you guys. And you guys have looked very, very good coming into this one. Reggie, congratulations on the win. We hope to see you guys continue to succeed throughout this split. And I'm looking forward to the learnings you make and as you educate us in your games. Now, guys, of course, we're going to have more action here in Super Week. We've got one final game, Velocity Esports versus Cloud9. Now, the summer split has started very differently for these 2 rookie squads. While Cloud9 is sitting at the top of the league standings, Velocity season has come to a screeching halt after losing 3 in a row.
And in their first game today, Velocity went with their poke push comp that actually had a lot of success in the promo relegation tournament. They controlled the early game and had Dignitas shoved back into their base really early. But it all fell apart actually in some of the team fights. Part of the reason they lost was Maple Street was getting hit again and again by Dignitas' stellar initiation, and he was not able to come out with strong plays in that Dignitas game. It was such a close strategy to work, but it didn't quite come through.
So they've got to make a couple of quick choices. Can't talk right now. A couple of quick decisions, make a couple of quick improvements. Maybe they'll be looking a little bit better. Even if Maple Street does turn it around, it's going to be tough to take down Cloud9. In fact, in 4 games this season, no one's been able to beat Meteos and Crew. They've been off to a perfect start after beating the top teams from the spring split. They look poised to dominate the LCS.
And in the 2 Super Weeks that we've had in the spring split, there have only been 2 teams that have went 5-0. Dignitas, TSM, and now Cloud9 looks to be the 3rd team to be able to do that. And we can't really say enough about how well these guys have been playing and performing. Sneaky has gone 16-5-29 in 4 games. High has gone 16-11-25. That's one of the worst scores for him. His play, though, diving has been what's traded a lot. But then there's Meteos, whose KDA, not going to sit like this for long, is 42 when he's been playing Zach. In 3 of the 4 games, overall 8-1 and 34. And yeah, it's just a lot of stats, but that's because their stats are pretty damn impressive.
And just those numbers are crazy to look at. Meteos has been so on point, and we've been talking about him a little bit. And backstage, we talked about Zach a little bit, and we're like, yeah, he's picking a Zach a lot. And Kobe's like, yeah, he's making it look easy, but initiating properly as Zach is really hard.
Exactly, because not everyone has 1,550 range move block. So if you go in early, you're going to die. And the fact that he's died once in 4 games mean he is never doing that.
Yeah, so absolutely beautiful play by him. Guys, let's take a look at the starting lineups. In the blue corner, it is Velocity Esports. Chris in the top lane, NK Inc. in jungle, Via Rose in mid, Maple Street on an AD carry, and Evan Niskus on support.
And in the red corner, of course, we have Cloud9 trying to get that 5-0 week. Top lane is Balls. Meteos is in the jungle. Mid is High, and AD is Sneaky. We're going to get to say that all year long, and then Lemon Nation, of course, on the support.
Yeah, those guys are not going to change their roster too very much. So before we get into the match ourselves, let's see who you guys think is going to come out on top. According to LOLesports.com, a whopping 84% of you think Cloud9 will win and go a perfect 5-0 during Super Week.
And this is not a percentage I can necessarily disagree with. While Velocity has shown signs of really strong play, Cloud9 has consistently shown it to us. And the couple things, obviously, the Korean metagame that Reginald has talked about, Cloud9 has adapted that, and they're trying to emulate that as much as possible, whereas Velocity has some elements of something that's almost there.
Yeah.
But they are making probably a few too many mistakes.
And it's just so close, though. Even though Cloud9 has started out perfectly, right? No losses. They've had they had a slugfest against TSM that could have gone either way, absolutely. And then also in general, they had the really crazy comeback yesterday as well, where they were down and out, and then got that one dive-in team fight that turned it around.
And they want to get that 5th win because their manager Jack is going to buy them dinner tonight, and that's clearly what they're playing for here.
Yeah.
Is obviously none of the accolades. #1 team. Surprisingly, even if they were to lose this, they would still be first place in the LCS. That's how much parity has happened in these first 5 games, but how much Cloud9 has been above all of that.
They've been the only one to really be untouched here. Every single team has 2 losses at this point, or more, and it's just crazy to look at how well these guys have done. I mean, coming out of nowhere, I shouldn't really say nowhere. They came down from the challenger scene. They dominated that, and people said, look, they looked really strong there. They 3-0'd complexity. They didn't have very close games, but were they really, really tested? And now they have been tested, and everyone really is just believing that hype.
And I can see why they're believing the hype. Cloud9's going to be believing the hype soon for themselves. They've kept themselves remarkably humble throughout all of this, actually. They know that it is just the 4 games. Obviously, it's so easy to say after 1 week, they're the best. Everybody take over. But this is a couple games over 3 days on a patch that is actually going to be changing a fair bit when we get on to 3.8 next week. So Cloud9 needs to enjoy this. They need to keep their heads level. They need to keep up the hard work that got them here, and then they'll have that successful season.
And we saw stuff just like that happen really in the last split as well, where we had that rough start. Curse started out immaculate for a while, and they were untouchable for a while, and then you saw other teams rise up to their level. Teams like Velocity, who got off to a rough start and then came back in the end of the season, came back in the Super Weeks, came back in the playoffs. They know there are hungry teams nipping at their heels, like Velocity right here, who are ready to rise up.
Yeah, Velocity needs to rise up. Specifically, this guy really loves looking at the camera. When he goes full screen, you kind of jump back for a little bit, and you're like, wow, that's... It's a scary man.
There's actually one thing I want to point out actually with him rocking the beanie now, because every once in a while he has it on sometimes and he has it off sometimes, and because their games are so crazy, it actually gets more frazzled over time because he's like an animated guy and he's yelling and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I asked him about it on the first day. He was rocking the beanie. And I was like, dude, are you going to wear that? We like watching your hair expand as your KDA grows. And he's like, no, I'm keeping it under wraps this time. Oh my God, I love Valorous.
To show. By the way, our cameraman who's in the game lobby with these guys tells them when the camera shoots to them. That's how they know when they want to do these funny things. Or there's just something in that camera lens he really wants to look at.
It's his reflection.
Yeah.
He likes looking at himself. He's a little bit of a vain player, but it's okay. And yeah, I mean, these guys have put on a great show. It's so fun to watch. And it's interesting, too, kind of the team makeup, because they also came from the challenger scene. Sometimes it's hard to know what the names are. And if you don't watch too regularly, you don't know these guys. But this man on your screen here, Chris, I want to talk about him a bit.
Okay.
Because in the match against Dignitas, you had Cutie Pie saying, this guy gets a little bit better. He's going to be the best top laner in North America.
It's also I'm a Cutie Pie saying, if he gets his mechanics, he was like, he's a god. If he gets his mechanics, okay, then maybe he's going to be pretty good. I never know what to think about I'm a Cutie Pie, but I do know that I do know that Chris is a extremely passionate player. I know after they qualified, like, he was so pumped up and charged after that interview that he could like barely speak. Like, he wants to do this so much. Also, he's one of the only left-handed players we have.
Left-handed pride. It's me. I'm sorry. He's a fellow left-hander.
Every once in a while, someone's left-handed.
I'm so excited about it. I'm such a rare breed, and I you know, Chris is what you talk about how passionate he is. We heard him from in the interview back in their first win, where he's like, yeah, if I get ahead, I feel great. I'm gonna roll my lane. I'm gonna crush. I get behind, it like shuts him down a bit, and it hurts his performance a lot.
And that's something that top laners all have to be able to adapt to. The ones that can survive after falling behind are the ones that make it to the All-Star game. They're the ones that are on the top team. So if Chris wants to make his graduation to the school of top lane, it's got to be able to keep his mind in the game if he falls behind.
And we have seen Evelyn banned against Velocity every single, completely new tangent, but Champ Select started, and we've seen Evelyn banned away from Velocity freaking every single time here.
Yeah, it's definitely a target pick for them, whether it's a jungle Eve or a mid Eve. That's definitely something that Cloud9 has done scouting-wise that I haven't been too tracked on, but the Kale ban is specifically, I know this one for Vile Rose, because he's someone who channels onto a single champion and will play it until you get rid of it.
Well, the Janna dropped out as well. They're banning out that other Velocity strat there. So they have a new mid lane pick for the jungle. That was a real grab.
It's funny because I feel like Janna completely needs to be part of that composition, since the way it works is, and I'm going to talk about this for a while because I found Velocity's composition really fascinating.
Yeah.
the mid lane Janna isn't your regular kind of farm out AP Janna. It's a Janna who was there strictly for pushing utility and channels farm to others when necessary. So the reason that composition works is you 100% need Ezreal and you 100% need Janna, because the jungle Ezreal will get double buffs and then push mid and take the farm while Janna actually supports him for a while. Then Janna maxes Tornado and teleports around to different waves, keeping things shoved while the rest of the team goes and does things. So it's very much a linchpin in that strategy, and without it, you can't pull it off.
So good scouting them at Cloud9 to know what to remove from that strategy. They wanted to remove the Janna. Even though it is a favored champion of Lemon Nation, they'll take that hit and say, we're moving strats from you guys. Let's move on. Now Cloud9 still on those important champion hype trains. They've grabbed up the Jace for the, I don't even want to say top lane, for one of the solos. They've grabbed up that Thresh as well. We're going to see some hooks in here.
Yeah, I think if we went to like Leaguepedia, went to the OGN Champions League, clicked on picks and bans, and just like saw the top contested champions and just like picked from the top line, those would be Cloud9's picks every single time.
Yep.
Because that seems to be the way they've approached this game. They've tried to memorize and emulate that playstyle, and that's why you see the Jace and that's why you see the Thresh every time they have a chance for it.
Very studious group of players there, making sure they are on the cusp of the groundbreaking League of Legends strategies, learning from everyone else, learning from their peers. Velocity, they're going to make their own choices, though. They, of course, did get that first pick Elise. It's been very good for Chris overall. They've grabbed the jungle Jarvan in here, as well as that blue Ezreal coming in there for Maple Street.
Yeah, we can safely say it's a blue Ezreal.
Yeah.
I think every Ezreal is blue nowadays. We haven't seen one that's not ever since Ezreal started making his resurgence back in. The Jarvan definitely tells us that the top lane, that the Elise is either a supporter or top lane, but I'm mainly going to go with the top lane.
Okay, so they're definitely making their choices here, showing their hand a little bit, because you like occasionally see Jarvan mid, but I doubt it at this point. So removing some of the ambiguity there. Cloud9 at the same time picked their own grabs, and the thing is they're still a little bit worried maybe about some of that push. They've grabbed the Nasus in there for some wave clear, and they've of course got the Zac here for high, or sorry, the Zed here for high.
High Zed has been real impressive this entire time, despite Zed being nerfed in the 3.7 patch that we are playing on. Can't wave clear quite as well, but it's made up for by the fact now that they have the Nasus in the jungle. His wave clear is huge, and that's mainly the way Cloud9 tries to keep things off, is they make sure they have the lanes all pressured at the same time.
Yeah, the one jungler that Meteos had played that wasn't Zac was actually the Nasus here.
Nasus, yeah.
He got both his buffs stolen away by Patoy's Blitzcrank and was like, okay, I'll wave clear your top lane and kill a turret. So the adaptation's been very strong for these guys. Velocity Esports making their choices. The Rumble's been grabbed up. Of course, we know Vilerose as that mid-Rumble player, and they've got the support Nami here for Evaniscus.
I want to see a Nami work, man, because I know Nami is very strong, and it's just a matter of finding the right situation. I don't know if this is the right situation. Evaniscus has played it once before. Hasn't worked out quite yet for him. That did pull off like a really nice double bubble that just rolled through for a team fight, but not as daydreamers, actually.
Yeah, let's coast.
We've had 19 games so far in the Super Week, so very much to go off of.
Okay, so the full lineups are here. A good amount of area of effect and a heck of a lot of magic damage for this Velocity squad right here. But Cloud9, they've grabbed the Rise up here for balls, so their full lineup is here. Interestingly enough, also, they switched the Jace around. It's AD carry Jace.
And this is something that Cloud9 did in the qualifiers, back when they were known as Quantic. Sneaky loves playing Jace in the bottom lane. He doesn't necessarily actually win the lane that hard with him, but once they get to the team fight phase, it's just explosive. The mid-game power spike of this team is immense.
Oh, geez. So a lot coming in for these Cloud9 guys. The mid-game's power spike. You heard Reginald talk about his team composition being strong all around and using those advantages, saying we don't want to wait till late game. An AoE team will wreck us here. So they're going to use the times in the game at which their composition is strongest and use that for a couple of advantages. So seeing these guys on your screen, there is Cloud9, the composition we're talking about. They're ready to go. Sneaky warming up his hands. Lemonation already focused. The game is loading. He's already got his fingers in the right spot.
Of course, man. He's got to warm up. A lot of these guys actually have like rotations they go through to kind of hit all their buttons really quickly. I know Patoy was the first one I ever saw doing that. He just warms up his fingers before every game as quickly as possible. Even when he goes in, just like clicking his skill indicators off and on as fast as quickly as possible. They got to be warmed up. Adrenaline's pumping.
The adrenaline is pumping, guys. We've got our 20th game of the week underway. We're going to find out if Velocity can end their cold streak and turn it back on here against Cloud9 in the very last game. Blue side, Velocity Esports. Red side, Cloud9. Game is underway. Let's get it rocking.
And right off the bat, the first crazy thing we see is a blue Elixir start by Vilerose's Rumble. He wants to fight High, and High wants to fight him because he's also started with his red Elixir. If we don't see anything crazy level 1, and barring any disaster, we actually see a 1v1 mid lane, we're going to see some Elixir battles.
That's going to be a fun battle to watch. A heck of a lot of just damage showing up out of nowhere. I want to see what these guys end up doing with it. Though right now, Cloud9 are doing something a little bit sneaky. They've got Jace kind of leading the charge. They're looking to show this tri-brush, but Maple Street, I believe, will spot them. No, he did not. He's been hooked. Arcane Shift's not going to work for him. Look at the burst damage coming across. Flashes the wall, but High shows up and says, you're going to give me 400 gold. Thank you very much. First blood, 50 seconds into Cloud9.
The hook landed right as he was arcane shifting away, so he was unable to escape. And what a great way for Cloud9 to start off this game, burning the flash and the barrier from Maple Street, as well as getting the first blood. Could not ask for more.
Absolutely beautiful opening. They saw the ward go down in the lizard brush as they moved through, put some own wards of their own down, and they've got good coverage now of the red buff side of Velocity's jungle.
And it's so difficult to be 100% safe against a Thresh at level 1 just because of the crazy range on his death sentence. Maple Street was trying to do the tri-brush scout, but he went a little bit too far and just was not able to come back in time. I think if he was expecting to see them coming down there, then it would have been a little better for him. But
unfortunately, he got caught a little bit off guard. That invade did work successfully. Evaniscus and Maple Street, though, still, they're lurking around in weird places. They're looking for a bit of a late invade. Thing is, they have Vile Rose chilling bottom, but they have NK Inc here as well. That's actually, sorry, I caught this wrong. Chris is actually top lane Jarvan. It is still jungle Elise here. They're going to make moves onto the blue buff.
Yeah, and this could very well be like a 3 or 4v4 in here. They're going to try to smite this away, but Lemonation is on the cutoff path. This could be a 4v4 developing.
This is going to be close. Vile Rose shows up. There's the pull. Lemonation flashing away. NK Inc with a fresh blue buff is still going to walk back. And the thing is, Cloud9 did not get any buffs in their level 1 so far.
Now NK Inc was able to smite that away. At least Sneaky got a lot of damage onto Vile Rose as Vile Rose was coming back in. But the aggro play there by Velocity, because they 4-man invaded that blue buff through a river ward and almost dared Cloud9 to go in and stop them. When they were able to get that, shows that it was a dangerous play that worked out.
It did work out. And speaking of dangerous plays that worked out, the bottom lane, they actually chunked High down off of a beautiful bubble that Evaniscus landed, forcing him to chug through some potions. Of course, he spent the first blood gold in the longsword, but is in a rough spot this early lane.
Yeah, and specifically with a 350 gold red elixir, it's not nearly as safe of a start as it was before for High. But Meteos, of course, is what we're seeing right now. Because NK Inc stole the blue and then didn't make a run for his own blue, Meteos is able to come around the side and clear this one for himself. So all that jungling shenanigans that really happened, I feel like could have been capitalized on better by NK Inc. Meteos did the standard thing, rushed for the other blue buff, and was able to take it.
And actually just pinged him out right there. Velocity realizes their mistake and says, yeah, he got us. Well played right there. See if NK Inc can do anything around this one and catch himself back up. We now watch this bottom lane, though. These 2v1 lanes, we've seen them a heck of a lot, and it's really been mostly a game of turret pressure.
Especially when we have the junglers looping around to try the 3-man dives. High has been able to hit level 3, which means he's a little bit more resilient to the dives early on, and I think he's going to be okay. The thing I want to keep track of is how quickly this mid lane can shove on a Rumble. I know the most recent Rumble nerfs have made it much more difficult for him to last hit a turret, because it used to be you could use your E to get the last hit on ranged minions, but when the damage went down, it's like 5 or 10 damage short, and you no longer get it unless you tag it with Flame Spitter first, so it's much harder to last hit a turret in Rumble now.
So let's see if Varros can keep up. Of course, right now he's just using NK Inc to make that a little bit easier. Cocoon comes off on Sneaky, actually, but the pull is onto the Spider. A lot of us coming across, forced to just jump back and down onto some minions, but Vile Rose still looking for some damage, actually. This lane is just full of pressure, and Ball's taking damage from Chris. Look at him down below 200 health. Won't quite be a kill, but Chris looking good there.
And Ball's getting jumped on pretty heavily by Chris here. Jarvan is a monster in the lane, and we talked about the Ignite on Rise, saying, I'm going to go 1v1 top lane. That's exactly what Cloud9 is doing, but it's not working out too great for him because he's gotten caught on the wrong side of a couple of these trades.
So running out of potions, of course, did open up with the Sapphire Crystal and trying to make that work for him, but how to sustain? We're watching the bottom lane again, though. Again, the turret pressure, a thing we are concerned with. The wave through from Meteos is stopping that up quite a bit. The turret down to 1/3 health, but the rest of Velocity are not making a lot more real progress here on that.
No, not really. I mean, the Nasus is what really stops a lot of those wave pushes. whereas NK Inc. is just trying to hold off for Valrose. Obviously, if the mid turret goes down beforehand, this is a win for Cloud9, and I think they're going to opt in to this trade whenever possible. That's why they picked the jungle Nasus, and that's how they're executing the strategy.
Valrose, of course, not in a great spot. 10 compared to High's 14 minion kills, so even as far as 1v2 farm is concerned, Cloud9 are finding a lot of advantages with this lane swap, so you called it right. They are opting into it and excelling. Cloud9, 600 gold in the lead. Of course, most of that does end up being first blood. And we're going to now watch this, I guess, this top lane fight.
And because Balls has been ran out of mana by the incredible aggression of Chris, since the jungler, Meteos, in the bottom lane has been completely showed, there's no reason that Chris can't aggress as much as possible. There's no threats whatsoever of any kind of gank, and Balls just has to back away, otherwise NK would have killed him.
They're going to proxy that wave, and they make a lot of experience get missed to this turret here. Look at that. The minion's going to go down. Balls is nowhere to be seen. He's backed for a tier and a ruby crystal, as well as a scout ward, or sorry, a sight ward, so he'll be able to see something. But you're right, this lane has not gone easily. He is missing a little bit from this.
It's not gone ideally, but I think as far as top lane rises go, the idea is not necessarily to crush, it's just to farm. His farm's been a little bit behind, but he's still surviving. Not the most ideal, not the most disastrous.
All right, so holding on right here. Cloud9 still holding Meteos, just trying to keep High's turret alive. It's taken some damage, but hasn't moved a lot in the recent past. Elimination pulls in Meteos. They got the slow into Evaniscus. Looking for this gank here. High looks for the slow, forcing the flash, and there goes Meteos flashing forward as well. More damage coming through. She's burning alive from the red buff. The flash pull does not land from Elimination. Evaniscus gets out.
That was the funniest looking gank, because the direction of the lantern just moved Nasus like sideways. I don't think it actually moved him closer to the target. If the flash hook would have landed from Elimination, it would have secured the kill, but that is a lot burned by Cloud9 for a non-successful gank, whereas Balls is getting jumped on as Elise comes in. Does have his flash, though.
Does have the summoners indeed. Had burned the ult, though, as part of the escape, so that'll be down for what that one's worth. Velocity, though, just going to keep the farm going. Chris is constantly shoving. But speaking of shoving, Cloud9 finally turned this bottom lane around, getting some damage onto this turret.
Yeah, one thing the gank did give them was pressure in the lane, and it allows High a window to shop without immediately losing his turret. So I think that was the main objective of that gank.
Valrose in a 1v1 puts in a fair bit of damage on a Sneaky. He is level 6 first, so it's a nice power spike for him, but he doesn't find too much out of it. Elimination shows up and says, hey, get off my Jace, thank you very much. He's going to be safe out of this one. Valrose at 33 minions. He still has not gone back to base to... take that back, he has gone back to base to shop. He's at 700 gold right now, but doesn't have a heck of a lot to show for it.
Yeah, keep in mind, Valrose started with that Elixir of Brilliance, the blue elixir. Tried to burn it, didn't quite get a kill, but he's just trying to farm up in what was for a very long portion of this game, a 1v2 lane. And I think he's done an average job of stopping it. Him versus Zed is pretty even, so it's going all right for him.
NK Inc., though, has spent a lot of time trying to help out Chris. And in terms of sort of jungle pressure or where, it's been Meteos camping for High a heck of a lot in the bottom lane, now showing up top for a bit of clear. But NK Inc. has repeatedly tried to help Chris get rid of Balls. And
Chris is one of the people who, when he does well, Velocity wins. So that could be a reason that NK Inc. is spending so much time up there. The other one could be Valrose says he's okay mid lane. I know Valrose does a lot of the shot calling for Velocity.
So Valrose holding on for what he can. Chris looking to push Balls away. And again, this 2v1 it's interesting just how many weird lane sort of constructions we end up getting when the junglers spend a heck of a lot of time on one of the sides. Though 8 minutes in or so, the buffs are starting to respawn around the map, and Cloud9 are making some stabs for it.
And at this point, Sneaky has to be a little bit careful. Cloud9 is probably thinking about going for a dragon, since Balls is saying, man, they're just camping me up here. Get on it. But because Velocity went all the way behind the turret, then ran through the jungle, it really just was a good way of denying farm for Velocity.
And it's done so pretty well. The red buff being stolen out, and now it's just, you know, Velocity, none of their really early moves have paid off so far. The early kill, of course, happened, but Cloud9 hasn't even found a ton for them either. We've seen just a laning phase where moves have been attempted but not really completed upon, and it's interesting that they're trying so hard and it's just not quite working for them.
Well, the laning phase could not be more even after the First Blood. The First Blood gives a team 600 gold, and that's what the gold difference is. The lanes are balancing each other out as far as farm goes, and the turret damage is remarkably similar as well. So Velocity is really playing these guys heads up despite starting at a slight disadvantage.
And actually a nice bubble there onto High, and Elimination dealing a little bit of damage, but the shields helping to keep him walk away. There we go, the pink ward battle has begun. Oh, Ball's getting jumped on by Chris, but
no way.
The Ignite just might be enough to kill him off. He's very, very low, tries to hit some minions, and he's actually going to fall over. Balls wins that duel. You said the Ignite rise, the trade is there, he gets it.
I think that's exactly what Balls will need to take control of that lane. He's been struggling this entire time, getting ganked over and over again, but then as soon as Chris went for the kill, Balls punished. That should give him enough gold for a catalyst, which might just give him the sustain he needs to deal with Chris's harassing that lane.
But with vision control now on the bottom side, I want to see what these guys end up doing for it. The blue ward is there. Velocity has vision control of bottom. Meteos runs to the top lane. Dragon is there. I don't see Velocity capitalizing right now on that knowledge.
No, they're not going to be able to, just because Evaniscus and Maple Street are just trying to do double golems and basically just keep up and farm. What we have to track in this game, aside from the turret pushing, is the Tiamat that Chris just finished. I want to see what he does with that guy, because we have not seen that out of much in the LCS.
So I remember back in, I think it was the spring split qualifiers.
It was on a Shen.
Yeah, Ravenous Hydra Shen. So this guy builds this item and does good things with it. Now, mind you, he carried the heck out of that game. So he gave up an early, a mid-game kill in lane. I think it'd be fun to watch. Let's see what he does. He's certainly wave clearing well.
Well, he's hitting multiple creeps at once. Why could you not want it in TMI? Look at all that money he's just made. I want to see it work.
Okay.
We're going to track it. We're not going to analyze it yet.
Balls gets the team out for an ultimate, basically, clearing those minions out pretty successfully. Chris realizes, yep, my red buff is gone. Thing is, I don't think he even has it timed properly. He was like waiting around, and that was killed like 9 minutes in, so he's got some time to go. Valrose has been moved, though. I guess Chris realized, my guess is that he's like, I'm not beating Balls 1v1 anymore. Valrose, you want to try?
Yeah, and Valrose isn't going to be able to beat Rise 1v1 either. Anytime Rumble tries to run at him, Balls are just going to throw a Rune Prison and a whole heap load of damage on top of him. But, at least Valrose doesn't have to deal with the 1v2 anymore. And this could give Chris a bit more roaming time. Maybe he just wants to roam around with the Tiamat, gank a bunch, and maybe get Balls confident. He is spotted by that ward. I don't think he's going to get much here.
He looks for it. No, indeed. Balls just walks right back to his turret, says, I am a little bit unsafe. You guys can go for this. But Chris still trying to put the pressure on the turret. He dives into minion waves, clears them fast with the Tiamat. It's actually left NK Inc. to absorb this top lane farm. However, for like the 4th time, they finally 2v1 top, and Velocity gets a turret for it. Actually, the first turret of the game.
And Cloud9 takes the Dragon right back. I mean, it's a trade here. Meteos popped his ultimate to kill it extra special fast. First kind of big action there, team-wise movement, but it turns out to just be a trade.
They still got a little bit of pressure here. Actually puts the flag across the wall to spot Rise coming over to defend it.
I was thinking Velocity might decide to turn on Balls, but they're a little worried of the counter dive. They would have a lot of burst with that Tiamat Jarvan being able to jump on, pop the Tiamat inside the Cataclysm and just do a bunch of damage. But Balls is a little scary. Maybe some bad memories of the last time Chris dove him and gave up first blood or second blood.
So actually, we also did see some really good adaptation as well by Sneaky. Kept the pressure on in the mid lane. It was the 2v1 from before. After the Dragon pressure, they still found a way to equalize a turret as well. So a turret and a Dragon for a turret. That's a really good move for Cloud9.
And that's what they excel in, is just winning these map-wide trades. Even though we've complemented Cloud9's team fighting so well this Super Week, what's been granting them the advantages and the overall victories in a lot of these games is just the way they move around the map. Meteos, when we were interviewing him, was talking about how he times pretty much everything from enemy buffs as well. So that often means that when he knows an enemy blue or red buff goes, they're more likely to know where laners are going to take them, which gives them even more opportunity to move into the right lanes to take pressure.
And that's just so beautiful when teams have that level of coordination and make those kinds of grand moves and keep things going. It reminds me of a year and a half ago Moscow 5 when they exploded.
Look out Balls, though.
Ooh, yeah, he's a little bit surrounded right here. NK Inc. finds him for the Cocoon. A lot of burst coming on through here. He jumps over the wall, but he's on enemy territory. Oh, the guess is wrong on the equalizer. Balls still running back down towards mid. I think there's no one's in front of him.
I think he may make an escape because high damage is going to threaten NK Inc. off of him. What a run by Balls, and then the Ignite.
Ooh, nearly picks him down, and Vilerose does not quite get the counter engage. However, Meteos in the bottom lane with crew have pushed down the bottom lane turret. Cloud9 find another objective. Vile, though, he's still chasing. He's still trying to find high, still trying to find Balls. Ooh, doesn't quite land the slow.
That is such heady play by Cloud9. Very lucky, too, the fact that NK Inc. wasn't quite able to repel track all the way over to Balls. Everyone thought he'd flashed to the side over instead of down over, and it really just faked out both NK Inc. and Virus when they're trying to chase down Balls.
Great play then. So the objectives and the advantages still seemingly going in the Cloud9 favor. Chris finally gets his own red buff this time around. He's going to like that one a little bit. We're going to see these guys go back into the lanes. High without an ultimate, though, puts a lot of pressure on Val Rose, who overheats, but does not really want to pick a fight right now.
And the red Elixir unconsumed right now in High's inventory. Blade of the Rune King, of course, back off of cooldown. I wonder what Cloud9 is going to be doing next. I'd expect them to make some kind of play for a top turret, just because that's the only outer turret they haven't controlled yet.
Nearly got the pull and the Lantern in on Val Rose, but the flash away keeps him safe just outside of the box. That was a nice move, though. Yeah,
and there is a lot of velocity kind of being on the run here. There's a giant wave kind of pushed up that Maple Street doesn't want any part of, and that's just going to allow Sneaky to get a little bit more farm. He's not ahead of Maple Street. As we said, he wouldn't really be. When he plays that Jace, he farms up enough, but doesn't necessarily win lane. It's all about the mid-game spike for him.
Now, speaking of spikes, though, Maple Street has grabbed himself his first big completed item, went tier into Blade of the Ruin King, just completed that. That is a very different take from what we've seen before on this Ezreal.
Yeah, that's real weird. I'm not sure exactly what he has planned with that. Maybe a little bit of assassination attempts jumping on top of people, but not the Lizard Elder, not the Bloodthirster, just a mini Bloodthirster. Only 25 attack damage on that Blade of the Ruin King.
Let's see what he can do with that one. A little bit of moves forward here. NK Inc. Puts a spider into the brush, says we're going to clear out the little mini golem right there, but those doesn't do much. Chris, he's going to spot Balls here. Ooh, doesn't quite go in. He knows that Balls is right around, though.
Yeah, and Balls is a little bit fearless right now. No matter what he's done, he's been able to escape these things, and if Chris jumped on, High might be able to come back and punish. High's also really trying to get to level 11, just did by picking up that red buff, so the ultimate death mark from High is even more dangerous here.
Chris still lurking around in the shadows, too, in the top lane, really trying to sniff out blood. Vile Rose showing up as well, making his way out. I don't believe he got spotted. And actually, Balls is running backwards on the mini-map. And there's a jump in. Chris doing a whole bunch of pain, a lot of burst. The Equalizer coming by as well. Chris chunked incredibly low, but because of Vile Rose's roam, they get that one, and they start running away.
But meanwhile, in the bottom lane, because they realized both solo lanes were gone, Cloud9 just went all in and picked up Maple Street. I think that was a Elimination Hook.
Absolutely great play here, and NK Inc. has to now hold his mid turret alone. The rest of Cloud9 is regrouping. Elimination's actually flanking around from behind.
Yeah, you can see they're just living in that bottom jungle, and that's why Velocity is trying to rush up the top lane. They're going to get this second turret, but at what cost?
Well, they're going to trade secondary turrets right now. The poke comes out on Evan. He's actually been hit by the Wither as well. Lemon's going to look for the hook. He's walking closer. No, he flays first. Evan must flash that one away, but he did not need to flash that. The second turret did go down. He didn't need to stay so long that he had to burn flash.
Yeah, it was still turret trade, so the total game is at 3 turrets to 2 now. The kills are still actually fairly low in this. And we actually have a replay of the kill that happened bot lane that we missed while the double kill was happening up top, or the 1 kill was happening up top.
A lot of early bursts on the Maple. The flay backwards and just so much damage coming across there. Evans' ult could not stop them. Just a really, really good burst combo.
They just ran him down. It wasn't even about the hook. They just managed to close the distance, and I think a lot of that had to do with Cloud9's ward coverage within the red area of Velocity's jungle, that Maple Street just isn't safe.
He's not safe at all. I mean, the ability of this team to dive on in, we talked about that with the TSM game, where these guys will just group and then go, and their ability to just start the fight, pick off the straggler, make things happen, and close games out have really set them apart.
Yeah, I heard from some of the referees the most common thing when they're listening to Cloud9's chatter is, can we dive, can we dive, can we dive? And now they're going to want to dive into this dragon because they get the smite steal.
Oh, the smite steal from Meteos is beautiful. He's got the lantern right there. Doesn't even really want to take it. Equalizer has come across putting some health bars lower, but of course, what does Cloud9 even need to fight for? It's actually going to be a jump in on Sneaky. He's going to acceleration himself.
This isn't good for Velocity.
He is not really at all. They're getting strung out a little bit here. The back line is ready for Cloud9 to jump in. The Ezreal whiffs actually comes across and doesn't hit a heck of a lot. Cloud9 backing out. It's the blue steal. That is going to be grabbed up by Velocity, but that's kind of all they got.
Yeah, I'm surprised they actually got out of that one alive. Cloud9 had taken enough harass that they decided not to corner Cloud9 into their jungle because Cloud9 was essentially trapped there. This is the real game Cloud9's playing. They didn't care about the people in their jungle. They realized that because of where Velocity was, Cloud9 could take a secondary inner turret.
And they do grab that one. Maple will trade the turret away, so once again we're seeing trades on this map, but it's a more important turret for sure that Cloud9 just grabbed.
Middle turrets trump all. Even though they're the same in gold, it just opens up the largest amount of map.
And now actually they're looking for more map to open up the backdoor potential. Okay, they're just going to push the minions forward, but they do run forward on this and say, all right, let's get some minions down here. No one from Velocity is even remotely close to this one. They can find another turret kill for themselves.
Yeah, but this is another trade, and this one I don't necessarily agree with because Velocity is able to push up the mid lane and get their mid lane as well. Are we going to see a little bit of a base race here as Maple Street gets jumped on?
Takes a bunch of damage from High, pops his own Blade of the Ruin King, though, to heal himself back up. Does disengage successfully. Cloud9 still wanted to put moves here on this left-hand side. The middle turret's going down, and the rest of Velocity are still pushing mid.
We are going to see a little bit of a base race. Balls went all the way back to base. He does not have home guards on Rice. And this is all 5 Velocity members pushing up mid. High does not have his ultimate either. This is very dangerous for Cloud9. Velocity's going to go for this.
Both teams are now on the inhibitor turrets of the other side. A lot of stuns coming across, though. This is bad for High. It's bad for Balls as well, forcing Balls to flash away. High forced to run, has popped his red elixir, and now the inhibitor turret is taking damage. There are minion waves here for both sides. These turrets are losing health very, very closely, but Cloud9 right now are ahead a little bit.
Cloud9 got the inhibitor first. Balls takes down support, and High's back with home guards.
They do a bunch of damage. The sun comes across, and it's going to be one picked up by NK Inc., taking a bunch of pain on the backside. Inhibitors trying to go down. Again, Cloud9 are still ahead on this one 4v4.
Cloud9 is going all the way for the Nexus turrets. They still have 2 people. They sent back Thresh as well to help High, and they have the edge in this one.
The turret's going down. Velocity is forced to run away, and it's up to High to stop the recalls here. Pulls the Lantern in as well, and Sneaky keeps putting on damage. No, they're going to back off and get one turret, and that's it.
All the creeps spawn right inside the base, including a fresh super minion. So Cloud9 could not get their creeps to the second Nexus turrets, but an inhibitor trade is super crazy. I gotta say, Cloud9 getting the Nexus turret is better for them in the long run, but to get that opportunity, I have to applaud Velocity because they can't win a team fight against Cloud9, so forcing them into dangerous decisions like that is a great move.
So here we go, guys. This has just become a much crazier game, and I gotta say, Super Week in general, week 1 of the North American LCS, I have seen more crazy games in 1 week than I've seen crazy games in like 3 months.
It's been absolutely unreal. North America is on another level this split. A lot of back and forth games too. That's the craziest thing. And just unreal decision making comes out from them. Surprisingly, Chris didn't upgrade that Tiamat to a Ravenous Hydra. And he's pretty much just going tank Jarvan afterwards.
He's got a long sword. There's hope.
There's hope.
That could turn into a Vamp Scepter. You never know. High's moving in, though. He's looking for somewhere to push. The stun's going to miss. The Equalizer comes across. So hits a lot of people, but Vyros has been hooked in. The team fight is starting. Lemonation, and High puts a ton of damage there onto the Elise, who has to jump right back on down. Vyros falls over. The wave comes across, and now Chris has initiated. He's in the middle of everyone, but the damage just keeps coming. The kills just keep coming. Cloud9, 3 kills so far. A beautiful bubble comes across, but it's a 3-for-1 fight. Balls chasing down. A nice shock blast across. Maple's
So
almost
close.
in range. Can they get the damage they need? There's the hook. Maple's going to fall over. Cloud9 goes for the base.
And now the question is, because there's only 1 Nexus turret left and super minion spawning, can Cloud9 end this game sub 24 minutes?
They're looking for it right here. Only evidence because it's alive, but in 10 seconds, NK Inc. and Vile Rose will show back up. Here comes the minion line. Lemonation leading the charge on down this turret. 3 seconds until the revives. Balls runs on forward. Deals a
They
bit
spawn
of
real
pain.
fast.
It's going down so incredibly fast. Balls lower and lower on health. Here comes the rest of the team. Can they do the damage they need? The Nexus is down below half health, and there's minions. They're trying to stop the Cloud9 squad. The knockout comes in from Chris. Sneaky's going to get dropped down. The Nexus down to about 300 health, but the counter engage is there. Velocity take 3 kills in this fight. Now can they turn it around?
There's that Tiamat coming into effect. The double kill from Jarvan as they were both standing next to each other going down for it. Man, Cloud9 was a couple seconds away from being 5-0, and maybe that call, that aggression was a little bit too much. They won a team fight so amazingly well because Velocity initiated out of sync, but now there's a window of giving Velocity back a Baron.
And of course, the game is so early on, the death timers are short. They can't go for the Baron. You said it's Baron, you're absolutely right, because Cloud9 are almost back alive.
And this is a pretty quick Baron attempt. High does have his death mark, but he's distracted by mid lane Vile Rose that's on a ward. I don't feel like High is going over for this one. This is a Baron Velocity has taken.
They're definitely going to have to do this one. Not quite the perfect smite, but NK Inc. still executes. Vile Rose spots. High, though, can he get the slows down? They don't want to engage in that one. Their health bar is a little bit low from the Baron attempt.
Everybody's got to take a deep breath now on Cloud9 because they have been going for some very quick end game plays this week and have yet to be burned by them. But this was kind of the first example of getting burned. Dignitas got burned earlier when they tried to all in against Team Coast. And Cloud9 essentially made the same mistake there. It's a tough calculation knowing exactly how much damage you're going to do to a Nexus as a team is respawning and trying to kill you off. Cloud9 was in such control of that game too that they could have just taken a Baron off of that and then won later, but they wanted to end it fast because that's their style. We'll see if they can come back from this one because they essentially have to wait out the Baron now with Velocity.
Well, they're going to pick up some globals for themselves to try to keep this one in their favor. Though the kills are close, you're still seeing a pretty big gold lead for these Cloud9 folks. Almost 6,000 gold separates them. The Dragon just picked up there. Let's look at some really key playmakers. 9,000 gold on all 3 carries of Cloud9. That is a very, very large number.
Yeah, they're still powerful. They've been winning everything in this game except that one call to go for the Baron. Sorry, to go for the game that gave up the Baron. They do have the Muramana transform as well on Sneaky. They do have a Last Whisper finished on high, so he's penetrating almost everything. And they might actually fight even a team with Baron if they feel so bold to.
Of course, there's still a super minion wave in the top lane, and with no turrets to defend the Nexus, they've got to be very worried about that. The inhibitors are just now starting to respawn. This next 2 waves are really important for Velocity to hold.
Yeah, Velocity is in another one of these situations where they're going to sit back on their base and kind of just farm out the minions. It's crazy that we've had so many of these situations in this game where teams with downed inhibitors and downed Nexus turrets are still able to hold on for realistic chances of coming back in games, but that's exactly what we're seeing again here.
The second inhibitor has respawned as well. So the breather you mentioned really coming through here. The super minions are going to stop spawning on both sides. The last waves are coming through right now. The one you see in the top of your screen right there still contains a super minion for Cloud9, but that is the last of theirs here. And this will reset the game in the lanes a little bit. Balls is set on the side lane farm path. They've got good ward control of the bottom jungle as well, Cloud9. This might even be their next position of attack.
Yeah, they can catch out a lot of good stuff from Velocity in that bottom jungle because that's where they've been doing most of their work all game, and they just have a lot of confidence in that area. Velocity, though, trying to make a play up mid lane, knowing that from the previous base race, by the way, that happened, there is an exposed inhibitor, and Velocity has 90 seconds left on this Baron buff. So if Cloud9 wants to hold this, they will either have to poke or fight off Velocity as they go for this.
So Baron buff, the actual timer left exactly 1 minute here. There we go, inhibitor under siege. Chris takes some poke. They're getting themselves grouped up here. 5v5, the battle line's drawn. Damage up on a Vile Rose. The early shield pop by Chris. I don't know if he needed to right then. There's the Rise Burst. Chris is going to initiate on. There's a tidal wave. So much damage coming across. Lemination's going to fall right over. No, actually, he's not. There we go, picking it up. But now the backline's taking pain. Vile Rose drop. High still lurking around the shadows. Maple Street survives the burst as well. 2 have fallen on one side, but Cloud9 are all still alive.
Nice!
Oh, that shock blast by Sneaky takes one down. That's going to make it 3 kills for nothing. Maple Street's not in a good place. He's trying to run away. Ball's going to take down Evaniscus. Maple Street getting chased as well. That is an ace. Almost picked up here for Cloud9. They've got the map on lock.
5-4-0 against a team with Baron. Did not even lose their inhibitor. The sniping and the kiting from Cloud9, specifically Sneaky, even High going in just to flash out, is what everybody came to see this game for. Now it's round 2, though. It's 5 or 7 seconds on Velocity spawn timers. Cloud9 is rushing through to get the inhibitor. I don't think they can end the game here, but they may try. They may try. They're not doing it again.
There's a huge minion wave there, and Chris says, huge minion wave. Good thing about Tiamat. And just crushes it out. Level 16 on him. All right, so we've got another inhibitor game afoot.
Yeah, and Cloud9 very clearly demonstrated that they still win the team fights here, even against a team with Baron making a push. Not the crispest of initiations by Chris, and that's exactly what Cloud9 decided to punish. Cloud9 has just an awesome team comp, honestly. The Meteos just kind of being the midline with Balls, and then everyone else just dancing around is crazy. Balls getting chased down, though.
He flashes for the stun, doesn't land it, but they do
out.
land the ults. Balls is so going to fall over for this one, and there's now a power play for Velocity. Again, the middle inhibitor is not protected by anything.
Yeah, that's not a great sign for Cloud9, specifically because Balls is one of the highest DPS sources for them, and Cloud9's fighting this maybe 4v5 as the tidal wave comes through.
Dive in, burn a lot of ults here, and Velocity's still looking to push on forward. Hook comes across on Valrose. High is on the backhand side right here. 5v4 for 25 seconds. Chris up at the front door. Remember that super minions will be pushing down the left-hand side, which will make things rough for Velocity.
We can't forget how much damage Sneaky and High can dish out, and Velocity has not forgotten that. There's a couple people at half health on Velocity, now even less than half health as this poke comes through. Plus there's only 10 seconds left on Balls, but High gets initiated onto.
Jumps in High. He's going to take a bunch of pain, but gets the lantern out. He will survive that one. The re-engage is there. Lemonation walking through his own box and surviving. No. Maple Street will turn that one back. Chris, no health right there. Balls is back alive as well. This is going to be a very, very close fight. Meteos and Sneaky putting out some pain. The bubble will miss, and now Velocity running away, trading a 1-for-1.
And High didn't even get spells off. He pretty much just ran away. Lemonation went in with the box. Still a 1-for-1. They held off yet another 4v5, and this is a great battle that Velocity is putting up against Cloud9.
Just clawing it together from a 7,000 gold deficit, and they're still making it look close as ult comes by, weakening some of these minions right here, but not doing nearly enough. Medius and Co charging forward now through the acceleration gate. They look for the mid lane here.
And they're the ones that are a little bit healthier off of this. They're running through a couple mid lane wards as well on the way, so Velocity knows what's coming. Cloud9's thinking a little bit better of this one, recognizing that they've had this game in hand for a while. It's just a matter of playing it smart, and I think that's what they're going to do right now.
Well, smartly, they're taking away the jungle camps right now. High, soloing away the Lizard buff, and doing a pretty good job of that one. We just saw Balls' Rise on the left-hand side of the screen take away some of the wolves. So a lot of jungles being sucked away from the map, and they know in the next 10 to 20 seconds, both Dragon and Baron are respawning.
And the Baron is the big buff for these guys. High's making sure to keep that bottom lane shoved out as much as possible because he doesn't want to have to make another trip down there for quite a while. The nice thing actually about Maple Street having Ezreal is Ezreal can keep that shoved if we have a poke fest in mid lane. But based on the quick initiations that we've seen throughout this game, I expect the fight to come fairly swiftly. Chris is having no qualms about diving in. What Velocity really needs to do is get a Jarvan ulti with the Cataclysm, because their initiations have yet to be able to really pull that off. Unless they're just ganking balls, they have to land that combo on multiple people.
And so they're going to look for the area of effect team right here. No oracles means they're just sitting in a sea
man.
of wards. The tidal wave comes across and hits nothing right here. Cloud9 might just go in on this one. A bit of damage across. Meteor stunned up. There comes Chris in the mix, and he's going to dive right on in. Equalizer comes across. So much AoE, but Chris just gets melted there. High's going to survive. They've gotten nothing here, but Maple Street's going to get caught out. Double kill. 3 kills picked up so far. Now NK Inc is the focus. He's going to drop. He tries to get high, and he cannot do it. 5v1. This could be Cloud9's game.
GG's called. It's a matter of Cloud9 running through the base at this point. Can they end the game this time? There's no turrets to defend it. Evaniska says he's got this.
I got this 1v5, but they got super minions there as well. Might just be too much for Nami to take down, and under the sea she goes. Great job. Cloud9 taking it 5-0 in Super Week.
5-0 for a team that is completely new to the LCS. You know, you got to earn it sometimes in the LCS, but they just beat up on a lot of teams. They beat TSM, Dignitas, Curse, Velocity. Such an impressive set of teams for these guys to take down. Got to be feeling good and confident after that.
They really do, and you see like relief on them too as well. Like it was like a mix of smiles and a mix of, oh man, because that game was nearly a throw. I mean, we've seen so many amazingly fun and close games with wacky stuff going on, and Cloud9 goes, you know, that was actually probably our closest game in a way.
Well, I think their closest game was probably against Curse, but the amount of base pressure they were under, there were a couple times in that game of like, they didn't play those fights right or get caught a little bit sooner, it was over. Specifically when Velocity had a Baron buff and they had a 5v5 on an exposed inhibitor Cloud9. Of course, it was a 5-for-0 ace for Cloud9, so in that way it wasn't that close, but you know, Cloud9 got pretty low in that fight.
They did get really, really low. Some very, very good coordination in that team. We've talked about their team fighting being so on point, and they managed to win a 5v5 against a Baroned up team. That takes a lot of skill to get through. So now we got to think to the future for these guys. So they're the team with the target on their back. They're the team that everyone's going to look at and say, they've kind of out-prepared everyone else. They've got the strategies there. They've got the coordination there. We got to take these guys down.
And it's going to be so interesting now because for the first time in a while, we have a fairly impactful jungle patch coming out, specifically because Meteos has had such control. He had an unfortunate death in this game as they're trying to end the base. 2 deaths on the season now. Come on, man. But he had such mastery over this jungle right now. Jungle spawns will be spawning quicker throughout the game, but later in the early game, there is a bit of learning for these guys to do in the next week, and this is a time where Cloud9 will have to adapt quickly as everyone will be gunning for them on top of that.
Well, we do have a replay to look at, though, to show some of the mastery that these players have put out in this game. Jat, if you want to take us through one of those big team fights.
Well, right here in this big one, we get to see, I believe, the Baroned up team trying to fight at the inhibitor, and just check how Cloud9 never gets fully initiated on. They got a lot of poke onto Chris before he went in and bursted him down before his DPS could come in. Everyone flashes out with a sliver of health, and the dive potential isn't powerful enough to finish them off. Since NK Inc. and Chris didn't get to really dive Buddy up, they both tried to be Batman, they didn't quite finish off the right targets. The rest of Velocity got chased down because Cloud9 was more mobile, and you can just see, everyone is so low, but the Wombo combo didn't come through for Velocity, and Cloud9's overall damage and strength took them out.
So beautiful coordination there. Everyone holding everyone else up. Right? The sign of a great team is how low your health bars are when you finally win the team fight.
It's a little bit true, yeah.
They're all low, so they did it exactly right. Survived the AoE, and that's one of the tricky things, surviving the AoE.
Cloud9's team fighting is something we definitely have to track. Cloud9's early game, Meteos' deaths, because junglers having the top KDAs is definitely not something that we see very much of. He's got 2 of them. In the future, maybe he'll have a few more. And honestly, as the rest of the now race to overthrow the #1 seed, last split we had 3 different #1 seeds. Cloud9's the early runner.
Early runner. We'll see if people can catch up to these guys. Now, we've had to take a short break, but when we return, we're going to sit down with the undefeated Cloud9's Lemon Nation and High. Plus, we'll break down the standings after a crazy Week 1 and hand out our first MVP of the LCS Summer Split. Don't touch that browser. We'll be right back.